With opening day officially here and the grass being greener than ever, that means baseball is ready to go. But unfortunately, that always means the injury bug is ready to strike, and it has already struck multiple times this spring. And today, we got 10 players that have unfortunately been bitten, and we got you covered with them on today's action-packed episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, we're your number one source of fantasy baseball knowledge, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. I'm your host, Dominic Martino. You can find me on Twitter at DonMartinoFB. Here, as always, with my brother, my co-host, my partner in crime, Matthew Ane, and you can find him on Twitter at Matthew_Ane. If you're watching on YouTube and you haven't already, hit that little bell below. It will subscribe you to the channel and give you a notification every time we drop a new episode, or if you're listening on the audio side, on a platform like Apple or Spotify that allows 5-star ratings or reviews, we would truly appreciate it if you could do that for us. And lastly, but most importantly, with, like I said, opening day being here, join Matt and I on the Subtext platform. Through Subtext, you're going to get an in-depth, personalized experience through text message alerts that are going to go right to your phone, offering so much more than we can in these 30-minute episodes. And this time of year, you're going to get our in-depth waiver wire rankings with details. We're going to go in depth with those and give you an organized rankings of those players. You're going to get those instant call-up notifications. Of course, with April, being right around the corner, you're going to get those call-ups, going to get those text message alerts right to your phone. No one else in the industry is offering that. And the link to join us on Subtext in the bio wherever you're listening, watching, and it's available on any of our social media platforms. And all right, Matt, this is going to be a fun episode. We kind of got it broken into two portions here. First half, we're going to talk about some more notable players that have been injured over the last couple of weeks. Some guys we haven't really got an in-depth chance to talk about, so we're going to do that. And then in the second half, the most anticipated half of the episode, in my opinion, we're going to give you about 6 mustache injured players that are going to be back around, All-Star breakish. We'll break it down for you, so make sure you stay tuned for those names as well, because it's going to be fun. But Matt, my brother, who do we have up first today?
All right. This is probably the most disappointing injury that has come across. I am an owner. It happened mid-draft, I might add.
It did. I was there. I can testify. I was there.
Oh, so mad. It's Shane McClanahan. It's really disappointing. He was looking real good this spring, quite honestly. For that tricep to go out really just was not, expected by anybody, and everybody feels truly bad for him. Coming off the TJ, really fighting it back, getting up to 97 miles an hour on the average on that fastball, really looking like his old self in spring, to then go down to a sore tricep. It's just disappointing. It's the best outcome you can humanly ask for. Hey, it could have been a lot worse. It could have been elbow irritation. It could have been, something with the surgery kind of needs to be replaced, like adjusted, things like that. Luckily, that wasn't the outcome. It was just a sore tricep. I can understand it. He probably ramped up a little too fast or just didn't build up the right way. But hey, let's see what happens. There's no timetable yet, unfortunately. So, obviously he's not a drop. He's 100% a hold. He's going to be fantastic when he comes back. You just got to essentially be patient and just pray it's not months. It's maybe like a couple weeks, which I could kind of see that happening. If it's a couple weeks, he's already eager to return. From what I read the other day, it's just a matter of, when the doctor's going to clear that strain through the imaging and things like that for him to get a throwing program going. I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of next week, he's already having a throwing program, throwing simulated games.
Yeah, I think there's a buy low window here at McClanahan.
Ooh, great call.
I'm not overpaying. I'm not like going out of my way to acquire him, but I'll text the the Shane McClanahan owner. I'll be like, hey, listen, there's no timetable. We're not sure what's going on. He's coming back off Tommy John, and you kind of you throw a buy low offer out there. You see if the owner bites. If not, I'm not too worried about it. Like we said, there's no timetable. He's going to need at least, like 2 weeks throwing program, bullpens, and I'd say maybe 2-3 starts down in the minors. So I think we're looking at sometime in May. I don't know, maybe end of April if we're lucky. So it's like Matt said, best case scenario. It's not going to be a long absence. And if McClanahan could build up and get back to, where he was in spring training, where he was, before he got hurt. You got a really good pitcher there, McClanahan. So buy low if you can, but I'm not overpaying. I'll put it that way. Let's move on to this next guy, though. Let's talk about George Kirby. He's another one that we really didn't get a chance, to buy into. A little bit of a shoulder issue there. He got shut down, after, things didn't feel right when the spring training starts. We're looking at, I think, the more of the second week of April, from what I'm seeing here. Another buy low opportunity. Kirby's a great pitcher, and any pitcher can go down at any time. So, these aren't really injury, maybe a little bit McClanahan, but Kirby himself isn't really a super injury prone guy. I like it. I think, like I said, he's also. It looks like he threw over the weekend. He started throwing, made a couple of throws from 60 feet, started to throw from 75 feet on Saturday. Haven't seen any setbacks so far. So again, you're probably looking at after this bullpen, maybe 2 gets in the minor leagues for a start or 2. Another guy end of April-ish. I wouldn't even say middle of April for Kirby. I'd say end of April. But still, you can buy low on Kirby. I'd probably go after Kirby a little more than McClanahan, but they're both still great pitchers. If you can't get Kirby, you go back to McClanahan because you probably got to pay a little bit more for Kirby. But listen, he can be really, really good this year. So definitely a pitcher that I'm interested in buying low on at the moment, George Kirby.
Great. Yeah, great call on buying low on Kirby and McClanahan. I will say that. I'll definitely give it a shot. I don't know if I'm overpaying either. Shoulder injuries are always tricky.
Yeah, true.
So, things can go awry. Like we've seen what's happened with guys that we thought we're going to have a great season. Like, it's not a major tourist like, Rodon and
Verlander,
Nestor, Kenta Maeda. Not Kenta Maeda, Senga.
McKenzie too.
McKenzie. There's a lot of like that. It's not that extreme, but it is a shoulder injury, can linger. I wouldn't expect. I kind of wouldn't be surprised if he went down midseason too with another shoulder inflation. So something to just pay attention to, and also use that in your trade talks. So see if you can just kind of buy low and be like, hey, let me get this guy. You know what I'm saying? But all right, let's move on. Let's talk about Grayson Rodriguez of the Baltimore Orioles. So this one was a little shifty. At first, he's hiding it. He says he's going to be okay. He's going to throw, and then nothing. And now we're dealing with elbow injuries, and I don't like it. For starters, yes, he's throwing again. He's throwing from about 75 feet, taking slow increments to, build up his throwing program to get on that mound, but he's definitely weeks away from it. And with the elbow inflammation, we've seen this story before too, where a guy has some elbow issues, they kind of get him to go through it. They realize, okay, it comes to a point where they got to make a decision and then ends up getting TJ or, he goes out there for 2 games and then, there it goes. There it goes. Oh, man, it's gone. And it's not the ball. It's his elbow. So, well, the ball might be gone, too. Who knows? It might be hitting somebody in the stands behind them. But, anyway, it's just one of those things where, like, with Grayson Rodriguez, I'm scared living hell out of owning him this year. I pretty much just avoided him in all my drafts. Originally he was a top 35 pitcher for me, and then I dropped him down into the 70s going into the season just because of that. So, I don't foresee him getting good. You want to get a real buy low, go for it, but I'd be trying to sell it for whatever I have if I had an early draft and, the outcome wasn't released yet at the time. Try and get anything, see what you can do. If you have any questions of guys you think you want to target, just, join us on subtext and, I can pretty much just answer those questions for you. There's some guys that I think you might be able to pull off and, might be able to rob some people blind, honestly. So let's see what can happen. But yeah, Dom, how do you feel?
I'm with you on Grayson, Matt, and that was a very, very good take. I really couldn't have done a better job myself. He's 76% owned on Yahoo. I'll say this. He hasn't officially hit the IL yet. I'll say once he does, if he's out there in your league and you want to like stash Grayson, sure. That's not, the worst move in the world. But I'll say this, like Matt said, if you already have him, you could kind of sell not high because obviously it's not a high moment. But you probably got still a bunch of Grayson believers out there. You can go out there and, try and make that trade, see what you can get for him. Matt, good breakdown. I think it's going to be a shaky year of injuries for Grayson. I don't know how much he's going to do. And he's going to be out till at least, I would say, May, if not like a little bit more. So we'll see where the thing goes with Grayson. But before we move on and we give you our last, recently injured, player, and then after that, we are moving into the mustache injured players portion of this, and some of them are widely available, so you're not going to want to miss that segment coming up next.
Okay. Baseball season is in full swing, and there's no better way to get in on the action than with Prize Picks, the best way for daily fantasy sports. With Prize Picks, you pick more or less than at least 2 player stat projections, and if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. Whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, or first inning runs, Prize Picks keeps every game exciting. Build my lineup. You just build it real quick. This week I'm picking Aaron Judge, and for more than one home run, which I think that's possible. And Shohei Ohtani, of course, it's pretty much just like the double entendre of getting in on there for at least a stolen base and a home run. Why not? It's that easy, fast and simple. Setting up the lineup takes less than 60 seconds, and when you win, payouts are quick, safe, secure. And you know what? They got promos all day. I always take advantage of the Taco Tuesday, where Prize Picks offers a discount on select player projections or even more value. So download the app today and use the code Locked On MLB and get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code Locked On MLB, LOCKEDON MLB for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Get the supplies you need from the site that's for skilled traders, supplyhouse.com. Whether you're into plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product information to help you get the job done right. Plus, with complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400-plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like dedicated phone lines, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage, and now it's your turn. Join the Trade Masters program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, or electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use the promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. And man, I really feel like my reading comprehension has gone from like here to like here. Well done, sir. I'm going to give myself a pat on the back.
No, you did a great job, and you broke out the spelling skills there at the end. And it was very, very impressive, sir.
I'm totally going to pass the first grade all over again. Just call me Billy Madison.
Back to school.
All right, one last thing, and then we'll get back into baseball. So look, you want an edge this season. You want to get all the prospect call-ups. You want to know who to pick up. You want to know who to stash. You got some questions. Best way to get the everything you need is just one place. You sign up for the Diamond Club on Subtext. It's that simple. Links in the description below, and you're not going to want to miss out. The people that are on the Subtext generally walk away with a championship as long as they listen to us. So just do the same, and it's rinse and repeat. Links in the description below. Dom, I've talked too much, and everybody knows I can talk, but I'm done. Please take this away, please.
Yeah, let's put a little bow on the recently injured players that we haven't spoken about a lot, and let's talk Sean Murphy. Sean Murphy, a little banged up, a little bit of a rib issue. He's going to be fine. He's going to miss probably the first couple of weeks. 4 to 6 weeks, but that's dating back, to about, I want to say a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks ago. So we're looking about maybe a month. Maybe we see him back in early May. But you know what the whole thing with Murphy is that when he comes back, he's going to be solid. That Atlanta Braves lineup is deadly. He's going to hit you about 260. He's going to hit you about, 20-ish homers. The runs in the RBI should be pretty solid. And I just like Sean Murphy. He's, on the IL right now. If you can add him, 16% owned on Yahoo. Love what he brings to the table. I don't really think we need to get too deep into a guy like Sean Murphy at the moment, just because, add him if you can. Otherwise, if not, just throw him on the watch list. 2 catcher leagues, he still might be out there. Throw him on the IL. I just think it's a good stash at the moment.
Yeah. You know what? I'm one of those guys that drafted Sean Murphy everywhere, so there's certain. But, he's a guy that's going to get full reps at the position on a team that I like. And you know what? He might even be dropped in a lot of leagues because he was so late. I'm not stashing him, for instance, but maybe like once I hear he's starting to go into rehab games, I'm probably prioritizing him on the waivers because we'll have answers by 3 to 4 weeks of how guys are performing and whether they're actually going to pan out or not. And he might be a great option to kind of turn to if your catcher doesn't hit. So just keep an eye on him. Let's move on. Let's talk about stash guys here. And I was actually just reading as Dom was going through his take. And I was reading about Eury Perez and what's going on with him. And right now they're saying he's about 75% back to himself. Looking like he's going to make that midseason, debut. He got the internal brace, which is better than just having, the straight up TJ, which is, things that coming on, it's like the same thing essentially that Strider got. So these are good things. These are great things that can get you excited for Perez. Still coming off the TJ, so there's still those, things you got to watch out for, control, things like that. Going to be a high whip when he returns, but dude's such a stud that I think he's going to, once he's back, he's back. It's just a matter of when. Midseason return is a little ambiguous. Is that, June? Is that after All-Star break? Is that August? That's the question. And that's also where you're going to have to ask yourself when you go out and stash this dude. Because you could be stashing them for not 3 months, it could be 5 months, and you're getting them just for the playoffs, which also isn't bad. But then, you get a lot of ILs going on, and you might have to drop them. So it's just a matter of how much do you really want Eury Perez, and how much do you think he's going to be an impact, and it depends on how long you're going to run him for. If he's out there, I stash him in every league already. It's just something that you're just going to have to make the decision and see who you're going to prioritize as players get hurt, because it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Yeah, Eury was one of the top pitching prospects in all of baseball a couple of years back, and 26% owned on Yahoo. Miami Marlins starting pitcher. He gets to learn from Sandy. Got to learn a little bit from Luzardo while he was there. Good park to pitch in. He has the talent. I don't think maybe they throw him in AAA for a couple of starts, see how he does. I'm sure he's going to go down there and dominate. I would assume he'll be back around All-Star break-ish. That's my guess. Definitely a great stash while he's still widely available, on Yahoo. If you have, 3-4 IL spots, definitely somebody you could throw on there for now and just kind of keep going, keep the thing rolling. And I think the same applies to this next, starting pitcher, Shane Bieber, Cleveland Guardians. Same thing, coming back from Tommy John, expected to be out until around the All-Star break, has the talent. He looked really, really good before he went down. I mean, I'm pulling up those numbers as we speak, but he's somebody a little bit more established. We have the track record of him being a really good starting pitcher. Coming back from this injury is tough, and he's a little bit older now. He's coming back and to be age, 30 this year. And like I said, before he went down, he actually, it was only 2 starts, but he didn't give up any runs. It was 12 innings, 1 walk, 10 hits, 20 strikeouts, 0.91 whip. He was off to a hot start. I don't think he'll be the Shane Bieber of old, but if he's a mid-3s or ERAs guy with around a K per 9, decent whip, comes back around the All-Star break, winds up being like your SP 5, 6, when healthy. Don't think you can go wrong. I don't know if I threw out the ownership. I'm pulling that up too. But Matt, you like Bieber too? Think he's a good stash?
Yeah, I think he is. I think when he
20%,
returns,
20%
I think when he returns, that's going to be, I think he's going to be worth it. It's just a matter of when. I'm trying to get the injury report.
I think around the All-Star break.
Yeah, it's probably that. I honestly thought, they're saying literally July 1st. So, I mean, if we start hearing he's going through things earlier, I'll be excited, but we'll see. It's just, it's unexpected. I think this is his second TJ as well. So
I think so.
So we'll confirm later in the comments probably. But, it's one of those things where the second one, if it is the second one, can obviously, change and also probably take longer because, I mean, it's just one of those things. But yeah. Shane Bieber, I'm kind of stashing and prioritizing Eury Perez over him, but Shane Bieber's another one if he's out there. But yeah, coming up next.
I don't think it was his second one. It might have been his first. But like I said, signed off in the comments. Let us know. I think it was his first. Not sure.
Okay. Coming up next is, guys like Clarke Schmidt, what to do with him now that he went down. Should we be stashing Heel? When is Neto returning? And a name I haven't heard in a very long time that I don't know if it's relevant, but we'll be talking about him coming up next.
Are you looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. Guys, personally, I love the no-shell variety. I mention all the time, whenever I'm over at my dad's, I'm snacking on his. I got a couple bags in the house at all times. I'm grabbing those. My girlfriend always complains that she doesn't get any, because, it is the perfect snack for those busy days, whether I'm at my desk at work or, just on a road trip having a good time and I need that quick protein boost. They're always my go-to. And if you, love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, they have the in-shell options. That's a classic favorite. So get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more today. All right, Matt. Let's move into this next guy here, and it's my boy. I'll take him. I got to talk about him. It's Clarke Schmidt. I'm super disappointed that he comes into opening day hurt. He was one of my favorite guys to draft late as starting pitcher, and like I said, just coming into the season with a little bit of a back issue. They're saying that he might only miss 1, maybe 2 turns in the rotation to start the year, which is good news, but still somebody that I didn't draft a lot, anywhere. He's 53% owned on Yahoo. If you have a lot of IL spots, I'll stash him there. The whole thing is he doesn't have the talent, I don't think, the upside of a Perez or a Bieber, but, he could be like a mid-3s ERA guy, K per 9, definitely. He's got the strikeout stuff, the whip, kind of, it depends on how the control looks. Schmidt's been up and down with the control over the years, really found it pretty well last year while healthy. Could continue in that direction. I think he's a worthy, IL stash if you got at least 3-4 spots. Should be back sooner than later. So if you have a bunch of guys, if you have the Striders, the Woodruffs, the guys like that, on your IL already, maybe not Clarke Schmidt's for you, but if you drafted a bunch of healthy pitchers, you got the spots, throw them on there. He should be back sooner than later.
Yeah, I don't know if he's worth a stash other than like, hey, the second he gets a rehab game, then I'm probably going for it. I'm not going to hold on to him long term. Even if he is missing just 1 or 2 weeks, it's just, there's options out there and I can pretty much stream. I like to get the win the first couple weeks. So, if he's getting that rehab game, maybe, but it all depends on IL status and how many guys go down. So yeah, let's move on. Let's talk about another Yankee here. Luis Gil. He's a little disappointing, got the lat strain and, that is something that's going to linger for quite some time. Unfortunately, they instantly put him on a 60-day IL and he's going to be out for at least 3 months. That is what the timeline is looking like. I don't like to hear lat strain, things like that usually come up where there's possible surgery that could be involved. It's just something that could also throw off his game for the rest of the season, even if he does return. So with Gil, there's that upside play, but he's not a guy that really kind of blew me away enough last year where I'm going to hold him for quite some time. He's like a second thought in my mind. I'll wait on him until we're getting closer to that 3-month timeline. So what, 3 months? And that's maybe even if you include all of March, that's still June is his return time, right? So yeah, middle May, that's when I'll start considering it. Right before I think you start hearing that he's getting rehab starts or what his throwing progressions are looking like when he start playing catch and things like that. And then I might consider it. But right now, today, I'm not stashing him. He's not really worth it in my opinion. Again, I need to see how it's going and if there's any setbacks too.
Yeah, man, I'm actually another guy I'm with you on today because it's tough to say as a Yankee fan, but I'm not as a big believer in Gil as others might be. I want to talk about the tale of 2 seasons for Gil last year. First 12 starts, he looked like a Cy Young contender. He had a 1.82 ERA. He looked fantastic. But his last 17 starts, he struggled to the finish line, man. His last 82 innings, it was 17 starts. So as I mentioned previously, a 4.92 ERA, 5.11 FIP, which is fielding independent pitching ERA indicator. pitched 82 innings. The whip was atrocious. He gave up 43 walks in those 82 innings, along with 74 hits, 14 home runs, almost a home run a start. He just really fell apart. It may have been because he hadn't put up that many innings before, but, just having to build back up. Matt's talking about the lengthy absence he's facing. I personally can't do it. He's my least favorite pitcher, once again, that we've talked about so far today. Probably, if we get to the last guy, maybe he's a little bit less favorable than Heel, but, they're about around the same. So I'm kind of just done with it. Over Heel for now. Maybe he comes back and looks good, but we'll talk more about him as the year progresses. Not really somebody I'm super interested in stashing. Might be fooled. The reason I didn't want to talk about it, might be fooled when you look at like the whole numbers for the season last year. Like, he had a great season and won Rookie of the Year, but dig deeper and you kind of will see he really struggled to the finish line, and then the injury recovering from that's going to be tough. Let's move on to somebody I actually do like. Somebody I think actually might be a worthy stash. Zach Neto. Of those Angels, right? He's somebody who had a pretty strong year last year. He's actually pretty high. Wow, he's actually jumped up on Yahoo. Didn't even realize he got this high. 69% owned on Yahoo, right? Once again, somebody dealing with the shoulder injury, but it's not as bad for him because he's not a pitcher. He's been throwing across the diamond. Hasn't felt much of a lingering issue. He's been doing the drill every day. He recently got cleared to take swings. Hitting off a machine, not live pitching yet. But I'm talking about, maybe a month-ish, and you get a guy that has 2020 type speed. Hopefully Trout's healthy in that lineup, and him and Neto can kind of get things going over there for the Angels. If he is available, actually still hasn't officially hit the IL yet on Yahoo. So, it's going to be even kind of tough to stash him at the moment if he is available. But I do like the upside here. If he is out there, you can get him for cheap, or he's dropped over the next couple of weeks because people don't have the room to stash him. Somebody that's definitely an interesting young player that, has a lot of upside. I think he's still only 24 years old. So Zach Neto, a lot of upside. Didn't realize how highly owned he is on Yahoo. I'm actually curious if he's as highly owned on platforms like ESPN and CBS. But definitely young, good player. Keep your eye on him in 2025.
Yeah, no, I think the breakout year is here. I think once he comes back, he's going to be going off. I think he's pretty much the Angels' only other option outside of Trout for offensive production. But
they need him.
Yeah, they definitely do. And the injury actually doesn't scare me. So yeah, he's another one I am going out and stashing because it's also short term too. I don't think he's going to be out longer than the first 2 weeks. So we'll see with that one. So yeah, great take, Dom. Let's move on. Let's get to this last guy who I think is Mr. Irrelevant, but somebody that could be, somewhat valuable if he can return to form. So Cristian Javier of the Houston Astros is interesting. I like that you threw it out there for the show. It's just one of those names where I don't know exactly how I want to approach it. He has good stuff when he actually is throwing it. He definitely leans on his four-seam fastball quite a bit, and it's pretty successful. Actually, in 23 when he did it, even though it was probably his worst year statistically, had a 336 batting average. His secondary pitches, his knuckle curve and changeup got hit up quite a bit, but his two main pitches that he throws a lot, literally four-seam fastball and slider, are pretty much unhittable. He just needs to pretty much stick to that and maybe get fine-tuned his changeup, and I think he'll be a lot better. But I digress. He is just somebody that you've seen when he was in 22 that was absolutely electric, and then from 22 you start looking at the fastball velocity and you just start seeing that dip down a mile per hour over the last 3 years. And I don't know how much it is the elbow when he went down to TJ, and how much it is that maybe he's just had a couple of years of relevancy and now he's going to fall off a cliff. 23 left us wanting to see what 22 was, if it was repeatable. 24, it was still not great, but it was in a better direction than 24. And he goes down to TJ. I don't really feel great about it. I'm not stashing him whatsoever. I might take a shot at it the second he gets a rehab game, and they're saying, hey, he's going to be back in a week. But other than that, I'm going to pretty much overlook him unless I'm hearing, oh, he's back up to 93.5 miles an hour, 94 miles an hour on that fastball. And then I'll be like, okay, maybe I'm buying back in. We got to wait and see.
Yeah, Javier, we threw in here for more of a deep league cut. We try and keep everybody involved. Even if you're like in a 15-teamer, even I know people get crazy and play deeper than that. Your AL onlys. Javier's 1% owned on Yahoo. Like you said, it's kind of like a dart throw. You're kind of like blind, maybe like 40 feet back, a little drunk, wobbly throwing the dart. It might not be the best shot. But, like I said, we got guys that listen to this podcast that play in super deep leagues and just kind of wanted to throw the name Cristian Javier out there. Maybe you could find, lightning in a bottle is what they say, right, man? I think that's what people say. I will throw this out there, right? 82 career starts, 116 career games for Javier, right? 3.59 ERA, 500 innings, 564 strikeouts, and a 1.13 whip. So the career numbers are pretty solid. He's still only going to be 28 years old here in 2025. So there is a chance, like I said, maybe there's lightning in a bottle here with Cristian Javier of the Houston Astros. So in those deeper leagues, maybe throw him on the IL once he hits it. But Matt, any chance you got anything else to say before I get us out of here?
Nah, I think you can get us out of here.
All right, go guys and gals. Thank you for listening. Shout out to our everydayers and new listeners making Locked On Fantasy Baseball your first listen each and every day. And shout out to our everydayers and new listeners, for listening, chiming in. And after you make us your first listen, go check out our boy Sully. He's a good guy over at Locked On MLB. Doing a great job over there with opening day approaching. And guys, until next time. So
peace.